I mean, I'm sympathetic to her. And, you know, as a grandmother, as someone who is of a different generation, I can understand that there are a lot of things. This is a lovely house, by the way. I like that setup. I can understand that they can be, and I don't want to generalize, they can be set in their ways, and it can be harder for them to accept how the world's changing, especially how quickly the world changes. So I am sympathetic to her,
I took a
but
deep
that doesn't
breath
mean I condone
and
the
pulled
behavior
myself together.
or the views.
It simply doesn't do to let others see you get upset.
Oh, the whole crying thing, the whole don't cry thing. Don't show your emotions, don't communicate with your family, which is the wrong thing to do. Shame on you, Grandma. That's the wrong thing to do. You should be older and wiser enough to know that. Communication is very key amongst your family members, and that doesn't go with just family, but also with your spouse, with your
I've lived alone
friends.
since a little time after Will was born. That was when Robert passed away. I
Oh,
missed him, of
my.
course. Yet it was tolerable until then. But then, after we disagreed, I felt so distant from them all. It was terrible. I know I'm from a different generation with different values, but I don't think they're all wrong.
No, I don't think they're all wrong at all. No. I think there's something to be said about staying true to your values. There's something to be said
I
about
wasn't
that.
prepared to accept that Will wasn't going to talk to me anymore. His views, I felt he was putting his future at risk.
And I mean, I understand why you feel that way. I understand you're just trying to look out for him and you just want the best for him. I totally understand that.
Those
Which,
views, liberalism and such like, I knew he would change his mind as he got older.
okay. All right.
What damage might he do to his life before he saw that you need to fit in to get along?
This is really hard for me to get through this chapter just because again, I understand where grandma is coming from. I really, really do. But it's so frustrating because I know it's coming from a good place. I know that she just wants what's best for him, but it's just so hard to like swallow the things that she's saying.
Will went off to university, but I clearly remember the Christmas that he and the family came home.
We also have a menorah. Oh, that's cool. Christmas tree and a menorah.
I felt uneasy about that Christmas. We would be together all day.
This is neat, like decorating the whole house. Cards, I'm assuming.
I try to keep in touch with friends. Of course, there was no email or that sort of thing back then. There's nothing like a real letter now, though.
Real letters are really nice. Like nowadays, they're so rare. This is a nice little scene. I like putting the scene together. It's a clever way to do it, Grandma. I can't move my mouse up and... I can't click on this because I can't move my mouse. Why can I not move my mouse? No! Great. I have to go keep again and look at. That's the only thing about the game that's a little frustrating, is that you're trying to find the next thing that you're supposed to click, and it's not always obvious, or you can't pan down to click it. Really? I can't go down even lower. Is there anything else on the tree that I'm supposed to click? Oh, good. It fixed. I had to restart my game. That was a really annoying bug.
Doing Christmas by yourself takes a lot of work, but I like to keep busy.
Okay, we have another chair here. One more chair here. It looks really nice, Grandma. Oh, look, nice. We've got a wreath here now. Very nice. I like the snow.
I'd been told that Will was going to bring a girlfriend, Sarah.
Oh,
It was important to make a good impression.
a girlfriend. Okay. There's Sharon. There's James. I guess that's Sarah then? His girlfriend? And there's Will. And where's Grandma?
My family arrived just as the Christmas lunch was ready. It was perfect timing. Did I tell you that Sharon and James split up for 3 years once? Will spent the time in America with her family. It was hard for me not seeing him. He was 10 and, like most boys, he wasn't interested in writing many letters.
Yeah.
James is like his father, really. A wonderful boy. But I do wish he would apply himself more. Sarah seemed a little shy, but she was lovely. She told us about her university courses and was thoroughly charming. Will and I hadn't spoken for months. I didn't know if he understood that when we disagreed, it was only because I cared so much about him.
Yeah, I can be very sympathetic to Grandma because her views and attitudes are very similar to my mom's for the longest time. My mom has changed a lot, which is saying a lot because she was very, very set in her ways. And I knew, though, that even though we disagreed with a lot of things, and I felt that her views were just plain non-constructive, I knew they came from, like I said, a good place. They came from a good place because she cared about me and she wanted me to have the best out of my life. And I guess she just didn't understand. I think that's the problem, is she was very naive, even at her age, and just did not understand where I was coming from, and she struggled with that. So, but fortunately, we're a lot better. She definitely did a complete 180 since
Will
then.
was a
This turkey looks
perfect
good.
gentleman.
Well, good for him. That turkey looks very good, Grandma.
He had such fine manners.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter that he's gay. He's still the same person. He's still the good-mannered person. His sexuality has nothing to do with his manners or how much of a gentleman he is. Oh, this is cool. We're serving the meals.
It filled me with pride and hope to see him that day.
Yes, pride. Lots of pride.
He was becoming the man I had hoped he would be.
Oh, okay.
Sarah seemed like such a lovely match for him. He would have a happy, normal life.
Oh boy, here we go.
But that was the last time I saw her.
Yeah. Ultimately, Grandma, it's not your life. You can hope for all you can do is hope that your grandkids make the right decisions for them. It may not necessarily be
The
decisions
next
that
summer, I went to visit Will at university.
it may not necessarily be the choices you would make, and they might even suffer for it, to be very honest. Some of the decisions that they make, they might suffer for it. But it's for them to decide whether or not that suffering is worth it, you know? That's for them to decide, not for you.
It's only civil to arrive on time for your appointments, so I started the drive down to see him with plenty of time to spare. The university had a lovely mix of old and new buildings. After arriving early, I went to look at them.
And apparently a lot of very good-looking boys. Man. Oh,
There were so
college.
many young people there, all full of life and excited about the future. Lots of beautiful girls around, and I
And
was hoping I might
boys.
spot Sarah.
And boys. I mean, the only people here that I'm seeing right now are all the beautiful boys.
I never went
All
to
the beautiful
university.
guys.
It wasn't like it is now, where it seems normal to go. It was nice to see so many people improving their lives.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
Will before he saw me. He was a short distance away, and I couldn't make out what he was doing.
Oh, I think he was making out. You probably weren't able to make out, Grandma, but I think he definitely was doing some making out. Well, is this Harry? He's cute. Harry's cute in that, you know, eyeless mannequin sort of way.
Then I saw that he was holding hands with a man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And then they kissed right there, out in the open.
They were making out. Sorry to break it to you, Grandma. I'm sure that must have been really heartbreaking for you, but
I couldn't believe it. I knew that his views would get him in trouble. After all I had tried to teach him, he went and did that.
and it looks like nobody around him seems to care. Nobody around him seems to really be all that upset. It's just you, Grandma.
I left right away.
I mean, I guess if you can't deal with it, you might need some time. You might have to take some time to deal with it. Because Will's come to terms with his life. You kind of need to do the same thing with your life.
I couldn't think of a single thing I could say to him.
It's a bit of a shock, I'm sure. Sometimes if you can't say anything nice, then maybe it's best to not say anything at all until you can formulate something that's a little bit more constructive.
Will hadn't seen me. I simply had no idea how I could be expected to act like everything would be okay for him. He was still so young. There are people out there who won't accept that sort of thing.
Like yourself, Grandma! That's the thing that really annoys me sometimes, is people are worried other people won't accept you. So don't add to it. Don't be one of those people. If everybody in the world, like, was willing to accept their children, then maybe, just maybe, it would be easier for them to accept other children, other people who are gay. You can't worry about whether or not other people will accept you. You have to worry about whether or not you accept them. Because it starts with you.
The university suddenly seemed like a place full of smug, self-satisfied people. Ugly.
Really? I don't know. They seem pretty. They look kind of. They don't look. This gentleman doesn't look ugly to me. That one doesn't look ugly to me. These people don't look ugly to me. You're in college. I mean, college is chock full of beautiful, beautiful people.
It was full of children, running around abusing the freedom that my generation worked hard to earn for them.
This must be really, really hard for certain people to play, because the things that Grandma is saying is just so frustrating.
After everything I had done for him, he was doing that, putting himself in danger. I felt so angry with him and with everyone there.
Well, here's the problem. What he's doing back over there, Grandma, has nothing to do with you. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but he wasn't doing that to spite you. He wasn't doing that to give you a rise. He wasn't doing that to make you angry. He wasn't doing that to disobey you or throw out everything you tried to teach him. He was living his life, and it has nothing to do with you, which might sound like a really impersonal thing, but he's living his life, and he seems happy, even if those around him aren't happy with him. He's not hurting anyone. So far, the only person that he seems to be hurting is you. But that's because you're taking a lot of this really personally. As if he's attacking you. And that's a really, in my opinion, selfish way to look at it. As if his life, revolves around you. And you are his grandmother, you are family, you are his elder. So he has to have a level of respect for you as an elder. But having respect for someone doesn't mean that they have to agree with you. Having respect for someone doesn't mean that they have to believe that you're right. Because you're human too, and elders have to understand that sometimes, no matter how much older you are, it doesn't automatically mean that you're automatically right and the younger people are automatically wrong. It doesn't work that way.
That sort of thing. It all just feels wrong to me. Sorry, but that's just the way I feel about this.
I feel like, again, so many people can feel really angry about this woman right now. But I feel like the way it's presented, it's very honest and it's very realistic. This is the way a lot of people feel this way. Does it make them wrong?
I
Does it mean
barely
you have to
saw
condone
Will
it?
for the next few years. I couldn't bring myself to talk to him.
It can be very frustrating for some people. It can be very draining for some people. It can definitely turn a lot of people off. But I think it's important for you to see where these other people are coming from, even if you disagree with them, seeing their perspective, and at least trying to understand where they're coming from. It's just Grandma just doesn't understand that, just because it's coming from a good place doesn't mean that the words that she's saying and that the actions that she's doing is the best thing to do for someone, is actually the best thing to do for someone.
It was silly of me, I suppose.
Especially for someone who raised him.
He had gone travelling after university, and I stayed at my house.
Yeah. And the problem is, she's complaining that she feels distant from Will. But honestly, based on what I've seen so far, she's the one who walked away, She's the one who distanced herself from him. She even said to herself she couldn't bring herself to talk to him. As soon as she saw that, she couldn't deal with it at the university, so she just left. So, yeah, I feel bad and sympathize with the fact that she feels like her relationship with Will is falling apart and that, their relationship was strained. But ultimately, she's the one who walked away. It's her fault. I'm just going to be very blunt about that. It's her fault that they're so distant because she distanced herself, because she could not come to a point where she could even talk to Will. She couldn't even have a civil conversation to Will about his life. She just couldn't do it. And that's not Will's fault. Trying not to be as blunt as possible, it's Grandma's fault. I mean, tough love, right? I have to show a little bit of tough love. I had to show some tough love to my mom, because sometimes your elders will not listen to reason all the time. They don't always listen to reason. Just like us kids of our parents, we don't always listen to reason. It goes both ways. You think that you outgrow that eventually when you get older? No, you don't. You don't. You can grow older and wiser for a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that you're older and wiser about everything, right? Doesn't mean you're older and wiser about everything. And some people just never get it, unfortunately. Some people never become older and wiser in certain areas, but they become older and wiser in other areas. I definitely am not older and wiser about a lot of things, and I definitely can be very stubborn. And I'm aware that I can be very stubborn about a lot of things. But I try my hardest, and it's a challenge, I try my hardest to always see how the other person's perspective is, always put myself in their shoes, always try to understand where they're coming from, so that when I make a decision for myself, when I make a stand of what I believe is right or wrong, I was able to do it I was able to take in consideration the other side before I made my final decision. Because that was important for me to always formulate my decisions, always putting myself in the person's shoes. And if I still disagree, I still disagree.
I said that my husband Robert had died when Will was young, didn't I? It's sometimes hard not to live in the past when you have so much time to yourself.
Yeah. We can sympathize to Grandma, but we can't let her, we also can't let her completely off the hook either, because that wouldn't be doing her a favor. That would not be doing her a favor if we just let it all go without pointing out some things.
I had such hopes for Will, and all the things that he would be when he was a man.
Yeah, well, there's certain expectations that you seem to have about what it means to be a man.
He was such a happy, playful boy. And then he changed.
No, I think he was always that way, Grandma. I think he was always that way. I think that was just a part of him that you never accepted. You thought that he changed. I think he was always that way.
I don't know if he knew how much I loved him when he was growing up.
Well, part of loving someone is accepting them for who they are. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with someone in order to love them. Ask my husband. We don't agree a lot. But I still love him, and I still accept him for who he is. Despite the fact that we disagree. Remembering all this must be really hard.
But life goes on.
Yeah, it does.
I was in the garden. Things do have a habit of getting overgrown if you leave them too long. Will had been travelling the world. I would very occasionally get a postcard from somewhere foreign.
See, he at least thought of you. That's something, right? He thought about you enough to send you a postcard. That's pretty cool. I didn't give my grandparents postcards when I traveled. Count your blessings, Grandma. Will's so far a better grandchild than I am, by a lot.
This was before he went into the travel journalism. I worried about him so much.
The irony is, like I said, Will apparently got into a car accident at the beginning of this game, but it had nothing to do with his sexuality, it seemed. I don't think anyone, unless I'm mistaken, rammed his car because they thought he was gay. I mean, maybe they did, but I don't think that was the implication.
He never seemed to want to settle back then. I don't know if he was happy. Everything had to be changing all the time for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, young people tend to be okay with that. Young people tend to like that kind of change.
The doorbell rang just as I was finishing weeding.
Grandma, what am I doing? Oh.
I got up to answer it and tripped, twisting my ankle in the garden.
Ow.
It hurt like the blazes.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
There was nothing I could do. I tried to move, but it hurt too much.
Oh, was it Will?
I
Oh,
called
my.
out for help. I heard footsteps around the side of the house.
Was it Will? Hopefully Will found his
Will
poor
had
grandma.
come to visit after coming back from travelling.
Well, that's nice of him. I'm glad he found her
After
instead
all
of...
I had done. After all I hadn't done. He
Yeah.
was the one reaching out to me.
Maybe
He
you've
was
got a
the
little
one who
something.
made the effort.
Maybe you got to learn something from him. Sometimes your kids have stuff to teach you too, and your grandkids, you know? Don't dismiss them just because you happen to be older than them. That's a big, giant mistake that I hope when I become a parent, and I hope when I become a grandparent, I hope that is something I will not take for granted. Knowing that sometimes I'm not always right. Sometimes my kid, there is going to be many days when my child or my grandchild is going to be right, and I'm going to be wrong.
It'll be all right.
He looked after me anyway.
That's what unconditional love is, Grandma. That's what unconditional love is. Love wins.
Inside the man he was, I could see for the first time the same kind boy I knew before.
Yeah, and had nothing to do with his sexuality, does it?
I don't claim that I'll understand some of his choices.
Let's get you inside.
I didn't teach him to forgive, but thank goodness he learnt that by himself. I'd been so distracted by just one part of him. I didn't see that he was the best sort of man possible. Kind, strong, and loving.
Yeah. This was a big struggle for me personally, because growing up as a child, and I've said this before in some of my other Let's Plays, at least 2 of my Let's Plays, so I apologize if you've heard this before. But growing up as a child, I was a very big goody two-shoes. I really didn't do anything major as a kid that really, really upset my parents, you know, prior to me coming out. I was a very good student, I got straight A's. I was president of several extracurricular clubs and activities. I was in honor band. I was in, the student government. I never did drugs. I never smoked. I didn't drink until I was 21. Legitimately didn't drink until I was 21. I think I made things really easy for my parents. Very easy for my parents. And it seemed like when I first came out to them, none of that mattered. All of a sudden, I was a failure as a son. All of a sudden, I was a terrible child. Despite all the things that I had done up to that point in my life, I was 18 years old. I had just turned 18. And they just seemed so focused on that one aspect of myself that was always there. And now that they were aware of that one aspect, they seemed to forget everything else about me that I felt was really worthwhile, and that I honestly felt was way more important than my sexuality as far as defining who I am as a person. And that was what really hurt a lot with the way that my family treated me when I first came out many years ago. Fortunately, that was a while ago. So I can sympathize with Will, and seeing this perspective from Grandma's point of view just reminded me of that time frame, because I was so distraught and so frustrated that they allowed that one thing to just completely cloud everything else, and all of a sudden, whether or not I was a success or failure as a son was purely based on something that I had zero control over. It was just part of me. And it wasn't a major part of me, but it was a part of me that I was tired of hiding and not being open about. And they said the same thing. My parents did the exact same thing, that they were worried. All the same things that this grandma says. They were worried about my safety. They were worried that, one of the first things my mom said was, "Oh, you're gonna have AIDS." And I'm like, I'm not even sexually active. Nor was I really interested in being, I was 18 years old, and I was like, I wasn't sexually active, nor would I have any interest in being sexually active anytime soon, because I was still, figuring myself and my sexuality out. I wasn't even looking to date. Eventually I would, but not for a while. I wasn't ready to be gay with someone else. I was still, trying to get used to the idea of being gay myself, much less being gay with somebody else. So there's a lot of fear, and so many parents back in the day honestly were just very uneducated about it, and, to put it bluntly, ignorant. And there's still a lot of people this day who are very ignorant about it. But I think it's getting better. That's why I feel like education is so important, because education is what has helped us get out of these insane moments in history that I look back on, and looking back on it, many years back in 18, I'm like, the world has changed so much for the better. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And, if you want to be cynical, where some problems get solved, new problems arise. There are now new problems in this world. But we still continue on, and we still persevere, and we hopefully learn from our mistakes and keep learning from our mistakes so we can handle the new mistakes that come around in our history. Because history does tend to repeat itself. We just have to try our hardest to not repeat it very often or for a very long duration.